What's good, fellow outcasts and other rejects? Welcome to WTC, Anime Outcast. First off, if you're new here, we upload anime what-ifs based around My Hero and other shows alike. Secondly, you know 80% of our audience is not subscribed? So in order for us to continue to make good content, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. We pick up with our prominent class during the night after the license exam. Spirits are high among the students, as all but one of them passed the affirmation test. Though the fact that they'd be resuming regular hero training the next day is a little daunting to some. However, our hero is still a little shaken from the test as he came across a shocking revelation. During the first phase, he was attacked by one of his own alien forms, somehow turned into a vengeful villain. As he walks through the warm halls of the dorms to his room, he bumps into his childhood friend. As the two collide, Bakugo doesn't seem fazed, knocking his green-haired rival to the side without a second thought. But as Izuku gets stable footing, he calls out to Katsuki.
Hey, Kachan, can we talk outside?
He timidly mutters with a concerned expression, but as his explosive peer glances behind, he mutters back that he's busy and not to pester him.
Look, I know you are, but it's about Hibiki. I know what's going on with him now.
Metamorph replies, his gloved hand clenched and his juniper eyes locked into the ground. This causes a demeanor change in the other boy. I'll meet you in the side yard in 5. Bakugo mutters, placing his hand over his eyes and sighing while shuffling off. His voice came off as drained from the day's prior events, but something else fell off with him as well. To his word, the duo met with the artificial forest to have this chat. So as Izuku left the dorms, a certain nosy brunette followed along without him noticing. Alright, spill it, orders the explosion lord as he leans against a dark oak tree. Just like the actual Omnitrix bearer, Katsuki wants to know more about this rampant form and why it seemingly has a mind of its own. At first, the changeling starts rambling about his alien playlist, saying he started off with 10, unlocked 2 randomly before UA, and then all his new forms after that. The Explosion King cuts him off, demanding he gets to the point, and what it has to do with this horror form show.
Well, I've only ever gained aliens, never lost one, and I didn't realize it until now, but I'm missing one.
Izuku explains, holding up his watch and cycling through his alien silhouette, with a certain wisp-like entity not there. Oh, hell no! You're not suggesting what I think you are! Maybe the watch has some sort of limit on it, like only a certain number of guys can be unlocked at a time? Bakugo tries to reason as though an evil ghost coming to life from an alien watch isn't an explanation he wants to hear.
I doubt it. The other Omnitrixes I've seen didn't look like they had one.
The shapeshifter argues as nothing supports the other boy's point. He had previously seen 2 different watches. The first one latched onto his older counterpart, which seemed to be a lot like his. And the other one was the Negatrix, a black and more advanced looking version of the Omnitrix. That one held more forms than he could count.
But there's more. During the exam, Hibiki came out of nowhere and attacked me. He said something about me having an alien DNA. Only he would know.
Midoriya further explained, causing Bakugo's eyes to widen from shock. The blonde takes a second, stepping away from the tree and processing the information. Shit! That's what that blur thing was? He exclaims with Izuku nodding. As this conversation continues with the two discussing what to do next, a girl listens in from a distance, unnoticed.
Aliens?
Uraka softly mutters to herself in confusion. She only followed the 2 boys out here to see if her best friend was okay, and now she's hearing information that doesn't make any sense. The gravity-themed girl continues to listen, hearing strange terms like plumbers, tetrax, and vilgax. Hold on! If that ghost freak thing escaped, aren't you afraid more will? Explosive teen then questions, raising a very valid point in his own mind, though it's slightly undermined by the other boy as he mutters back.
My other aliens probably would have acted up by now. And besides, I've always felt weird as Hibiki. There's probably some explanation to this because of his species.
After discussing it a bit more, the two students head back to their dorm, loosely followed by Uraraka. Following days, classes return to normal, with the three main students having their own internal struggles. Izuku has yet to go to the plumbers about his escapee problem. He's also afraid to do so, because in his mind, this is his fault. While Bakugo has his strange fatigue, which he chalks up to the body not being used to the mix of super strength and his enhanced explosion quirk. Then we have Uraraka. Her head is a mess after eavesdropping on the two classmates. The poverty-stricken girl knew there was more to Izuku's strange superpower, but she's still trying to figure out how the aliens fit into this. Now, these worries are something the Hero Course students would have to face later as new challenges enter the classroom. Aizawa coldly welcomes in 3 students, some of the UA's best and oldest trainees, the group's nickname being the Big Three. All eyes are locked onto the third-year students, with Izuku's jaw opening at the sight of one of them. He seems to lead the group with an All Might-like posture and smile, though the 2 that follow alongside him also pique his interest. The girl of the group bounced around with a strange twitch as she couldn't stop moving, while the second guy shuffled in and his shoulders low and his head down. The black-haired team seems to lack the energy his female counterpart does.
Already talked about work studies, so I brought Mirio, Nejire, and Tamaki here to explain more about it.
The battle-scarred teacher calls out, with the Big Three taking center stage of the classroom. Each student takes a turn trying to explain the program, causing them to fail to their own respective way. For example, Hato starts off strong by talking about her experiences before trailing off at a tangent about something utterly random. Then, Tamaki tries to pick up where his comrade left off, only to freeze from stage fright. So seeing how his fellow third years are getting nowhere, Mirio changes approach. Instead of telling the first years about the work studies, he's going to demonstrate what they could be gaining to partake in one. To do this, he challenges the entire class to a sparring exercises, 18 against 1. As the heroes in training gather in Gym Gamma at the request of their new mentor, one of the students speaks up. "Hey man, I'm not one to turn down a fight, but are you sure about this?" Hiroshima mutters, one eye cocked up as he questions his gleaming beacon of positivity. "Am I sure? Not really, but it's worth a shot." Mirio chuckles to himself as he starts to stretch and warm up for an incoming battle. Something about Togeda doesn't sit well with Izuku. He doesn't think anything bad of his older peer, but everything about him just seemed too similar to All Might. But he pushes these feelings down as he leads the charge of 1A, hitting the Omnitrix to become blinding cloth. The tattered alien jumps into the air and extends multiple fabric tendrils toward the upperclassman, attempting to ensnare him and pull himself close. But as the narrow limbs try to wrap around the shredded blonde, they pass through him like he isn't even there. This catches the Coffin off guard, causing him to retract his cloth as he lands. "Oh, so you're Midoriya. You know, you have a quirk just like Tamaki," Mirio announces before vanishing, leaving nothing but a dust cloud and his PE uniform. The collective heads of the students dart around the gym, looking for where their senior could have gone. "Down here!" a voice calls out to Izuku, seemingly below him, but as the mummy jolts his head down, it is met by a fist shooting out of the concrete ground. The sudden blow sent Deku onto his back as the experienced hero continued to fly upward. The naked Mirio then somehow blitzes around the arena, taking out multiple students with one punch each. A select few manage to escape the strikes like Bakugo and Tsuyu. After a barrage, Togeta takes a second to collect his pants and addresses the still standing students. "Mart, moving away from a threat you know nothing about and know a lot about yourself. That's something you have to do a lot when you're working on the field." Izuku recovers from the blow quite quickly. His head and upper body had been slightly unwrapped from his rock core due to the impact, but he more or less okay. As the mummy starts strategizing, Bakugo does the same, with the ante becoming higher than expected. Katsuki considers using his trump card, although he's hesitant. At his current 12%, the injured teen isn't sure he could get in a punch or even a kick in because of how Mirio's insane speed is. So maybe an explosion would work better, but at the same time, he doesn't know what given to get to his speed. However, regardless, the ninth holder of One for All forces his power to flood around his body, as he starts shooting himself around the gym to find an opening. As he does, Mirio vanishes within the ground once more, giving the changeling at the other end of the hall an idea. Izuku changes into Taro Inu, using his enhanced hearing and smell for Togeta under the ground. To his surprise, he can only sense the army of one under the floor, signaling to his superpower comrade that he's just about to appear under him. Then, as if on cue, Mirio bursts out of the ground for an uppercut on the dog-like alien, only for the hound to leap backwards. With an opening and still being in the air, the Explosion Lord lets off a supercharged blast with his uncharged side, nearly engulfing Izuku in the attack. Thick black smoke covers the whole gym, with most people needing to either cover their lower face or run out and not breathe it in. A new Mirio pops out of the ground as the dust settles, panting. Okay. Maybe we should stop before we tear down the gym. He mutters aloud, his voice still filled with optimism despite just had being transpired. That extreme showcase over, the strange-eyed man gives 1A a few minutes to recover before having them crowd around him. Mirio explains a few things to them, such as his quirk, permeation, and the struggling it was building up his strength. Through his work studies, he went from an underperforming slouch to one of the best heroes in his class. That's the core of his message. Any work a student will do in the field has the potential to help them excel in class. As another day comes to a tiring end, a conversation starts between Izuku and his friend, as they both attempt to enter their dorms.
Hey, Kachan, you heard anything from Best Genus?
The shapeshifter casually asks, turning to face Bakugo, who stood across from him. But the blonde has delayed response, taking a long and drawn-out sigh before talking.
Why the hell would I be talking to that pompous prick?
The bombastic blonde exclaims, his eyes narrowing at Izuku. But his green-haired rival could see through his lie, as they were both given Gina's personal phone number. The Threadweaver gave it to them just in case of a situation like this or needing guidance. Midoriya knows Katsuki is arrogant. He isn't stupid to ignore such a valuable resource.
You know, these work studies coming up, we might be able to go back to his agency,
exclaims the Omnitrix wielder, with Bakugo losing his edge. I haven't heard of him since Kamino. News reports are saying he's taking a break from being a hero. I don't buy it. Katsuki shares, leaning against his room's door with his hand on his chin. He had been crafting his theory on where his mentor could be ever since the return to UA.
We literally saw him with a hole in his chest.
Izuku mutters to himself before deciding to change the topic slightly. The green metamorph then looks around to see if anyone is near him before leaning towards Bakugo and speaking quietly.
Are you going to see if he can get you into the agency? He has to have some pretty powerful connections.
This catches the supercharged cannon off guard, as he initially didn't think of doing so. Of course I am! It's not like I have many other options. The problem is I don't know who we can actually get in contact with. The bombarder blurts out, trying to cover up his lack of an idea. Our hero then tries to think of options before shrugging and saying he should just ask All Might if he knows anyone. As Izuku enters his room, he goes straight for his desk. Within seconds of sitting down, the team gets to work and searching through his old list of internship requests he got and it felt like a long time ago. Out of the few hundred inquiries he got, barely any seemed to be accepting work studies at the moment, or didn't have a good enough reputation. He researches through the night to find anyone he could use. though it seemed fruitless for the first couple of hours, causing the shapeshifter to rest his head on the desk. As he raises his skull from the table, his gaze fixates on a pristine white plumber badge. At first, he thinks nothing of it until one idea crosses his mind.
Of course!
Izuku shouts out, jumping up from his seat as he has a eureka moment. Then, he covers his mouth, fearing that he might have woken up one of his classmates. Moving past that, he shoots an email to Sakura to see if the alien-themed police force had any form of hero agency attached to it. Thanks again to the Outcasts and Rejects for watching till the end of the video. If this video gets 80 likes in 2 weeks, we'll continue the series. Other than that, if you have any other questions about the series or channel, sound off in the comments or feel free to join our Discord. Thanks again.